Top 5 Tuesday is back. Of course it is, because it's Tuesday again. Kind of how it works. Top 5 game genres then. I know what number 1's going to be. The rest, though, it's a tricky one. Because I know what... well, actually, no, you know what? Number 1, number 2. I don't know how broad or specific this should be, because, you know, game genres could be as simple as FPS, platformer, RPG, or they could be as specific as JRPG, cinematic platformer, 3D platformer, looter shooter, boomer shooter, etc. Don't really agree with the term boomer shooter, but I haven't thought of anything better myself, so other than like classic shooter or whatever. But maybe we can come up with one together. How about that? If you've got any ideas for what boomer shooters should be called. Anyway, number 5, probably going to go roguelite. Yeah, let's go roguelite. I like a roguelike, but I have to really be in the mood for a roguelike, because they are hard work. And I have played very few roguelikes, as it turns out, because the classic ones and the ones that are actually like proper roguelikes, they are impenetrably complex. I want to play NetHack, but you know, you need to spend hours with it just to get to grips with the darn thing before you even start playing it. So I'm going to go with a roguelite, because roguelites are designed to be simple to pick up, difficult to master, but there's always a couple of levels to them. And, well, the thing is, the reason why I put roguelite number 5 is because it's such a variable genre that you can't really say that you like every roguelite. I like FTL. I like Rogue Legacy, but not anywhere near as much as FTL. I like Bubble Tanks. I'm trying to think of roguelites I don't like now. I'm sure there's at least one that I've played that I wasn't particularly a big fan of, but I can't think what it is now. Reigns? You see, the difference between something like Rogue Legacy and Reigns, it's night and day, but they're both roguelites. But I enjoy the concept of having almost your entire play session being this self-contained little thing, and you can play it over a lunch break, or you can spend hours in it, which is what usually happens. But every time you play, you get rewarded in some manner outside of the game. So it's a game within a game. Rogue Legacy, the example being the main game, as it were, is trying to get through the castle, and I can't remember what the end goal is. I think you've just got to kill something. Simple as that. You've got to defeat the boss, I suppose. But every time you go through it and every time you die, because you die a lot, you can then get some upgrades to your next character. Assuming you've got enough gold to do so, you can buy castle upgrades, and you can purchase new equipment that your next character will have for the next run. FTL, you unlock more ships. I mean, there's not really much else other than that, but you unlock more ships. And, you know, stuff like that. There's stuff outside of the main game that helps you in the main game. And that's a really nice system. I like it a lot. So that's number 5. Number 4, I feel quite strongly that this list is going to become remarkably platformer heavy at this stage, but who cares, because number 4 is going to be cinematic platformer. Love me a good cinematic platformer. And again, this is something that's variable, because Another World is pretty darn great technically speaking, but I don't think it's that much fun to play. But then Abe's Exodus, one of the best games ever made. And then you've got the likes of Prince of Persia and I was about to call Lode Runner a cinematic platformer. I don't think it is, but I feel that it was there's a lot of that game's DNA in the cinematic platformer. The idea is of a cinematic platformer. It's such a mouthful when you have to say it a lot. the idea of a CP, let's call it, is it's not like a Mario game. It's not like you can jump 50 feet in the air and run at 300 miles an hour. You don't bop blocks and you don't bop turtles and Koopas. You don't glide. You don't run around and breathe fire at Rhinox. You don't spin into crates and collect Wumpa fruit. No, it's a more realistic take on the platformer. So you have to do things like climb up onto ledges, and you have to really think about, is that fall going to kill me, or is it going to be okay? Usually you can die very, very easily. Usually there's a rather difficult secondary objective. Thinking specifically of Abe's Exodus and the Oddworld games in general, you have to free your fellow slaves. You don't have to, but it's better if you do. Prince of Persia, you've got a time limit, so you can't faff around. There are invariably 1,000,001 traps out to get you, and they are invariably beautifully animated. There's just an incredible genre, and they really redefine what a platformer can be. Or they did, I suppose. So yeah, number 4, cinematic platformer. Have to be in the mood for them again. Then they are long haul jobs. You know, you don't just sit and play one for a little bit. Number 3, I'm going to go for a catch-all here, but it's difficult to disseminate this one, so I'm just going to say RPG. Now, RPG has become very much diluted over the past 10 years or so, with the likes of, well, probably things like Fallout 3 and Oblivion and, well, no, not even Oblivion, probably like the likes of Skyrim and stuff, and other games which are your standard action-adventure fare. You could even regard them as 3D platformers if you were feeling froggy. But they incorporate RPG mechanics, and many first-person shooters are doing this as well. They incorporate RPG mechanics. But they're not really RPGs, and I would be hard-pressed to call even something like Deus Ex Human Revolution an RPG. I mean, it is, because it's got the RPG trappings, but it is more of an action game, I would say. But Deus Ex and Fallout and other games of that ilk, I haven't played many of the Western RPGs, I must admit. Flipping great experiences, though. I love the original Fallout, and I love the original Deus Ex, and really, I love Human Revolution as well. It's one of my favourites. But the reason why I say RPG is because it encompasses roguelikes, and it encompasses, you could argue that it encompasses Metroidvanias, in fact. They're not strictly RPGs, but some of them are, the likes of Symphony of the Night, for example. One of the progenitors of the Metroidvania genre as a whole. But it also includes the granddaddy of them all, the JRPG. Some of the world's greatest and classicest games are JRPGs. And the likes of Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story is a JRPG. And that is such a brilliant game. Super Mario RPG, JRPG. Paper Mario, JRPG. All the Mario RPGs are just fantastic. They're kind of the only ones that I've properly played, but whatever. I love an RPG, and again, it's that experience of slowly chipping away at something and slowly building up your abilities and your character's powers. One of my favourite RPGs, RuneScape, MMO as well. I like the system of your character getting better at things the more they do them, and that's not something you come across often in RPGs. Usually it's you do a thing and then you can put all your points into something totally different. Let's take Fallout, for example. You can go around shooting people and suddenly you get better at lockpicking. Doesn't make any sense, but hey, that's RPGs. I love them. They're brilliant, and they are very varied as well. I'm rambling, so I'm going to get on with it. Number 2. Oh, dang. What was number 2 going to be now? I do feel quite strongly that I should put boomer shooters, for want of a better phrase, in there. Well, why don't we just call them Doom clones? There you go, much better. Some of my favourite games are Doom clones. The likes of Doom, for example, which is not a Doom clone. Duke 3D, it's not as good as everybody says, I don't think, but it's still good. It's still a really good game. Blood, one of the better ones. Shadow Warrior's pretty good, if deeply racist and horrible. Serious Sam, absolute classic. It's fantastic as Serious Sam. And then you go on to things like what's a recent one I've played? I'm just trying to think. I have. There is some 3D shooter that I've played fairly recently, and I can't think what it is now. Oh dang! I've just remembered another genre that I should have included. Oh well. I'll give that an honourable mention at the end because it didn't come up. Yeah, there's a lot of great shooters. The thing is, they're always just a good time, you know. The classic ones in particular, because they're just like, right, you press new game, there you go, bam, you're in, you've got a gun, go for it. It's a major complaint of modern shooters that I think, yes, okay, plot is important, but Halo did plot, and that just dumped you in straight away and told you to get on with it. Half-Life 2 did plot, and that just dumped you in and told you to get on with it. Half-Life 1, I mean, that had a brilliant intro sequence as well. You didn't just get on with it, but, you know. Does Half-Life 1 count as a Doom clone? That's an interesting one. That's an interesting discussion that we may have to have at some point. But my point is, the classic FPS, you just get on with it. You just get straight in and you're in the thick of it immediately, and I think it's so visceral and exciting. They always control really well. They've always got the really crisp, pixel perfect movement. I mean, not always, but they feel good to control. Particularly since most of them have been updated so they work on modern computers, and they work really, really well. GZ Doom, Duke 32, Serious Sam Classics Revolution, Aleph 1 for Marathon, and so on and so forth. Yeah, there's so many great classic games in the Doom clone subgenre. I didn't say FPS as a whole because there's a lot of FPS that I despise. Call of Duty, for example, and you know there's all these stupid hero shooters now that are all the rage and all a bit boring, really, isn't it? FPS are very passé, but you go back to the old ones and they are not. They are the rock and roll of game genres. But my number 1 is the no, it's not prog rock game genres. It's the flipping bubblegum pop of game genres. It's, you all know it, you all love it. It's the 3D platformer. I adore 3D platformers. I haven't yet been able to put my finger on why. I think 90% of it is the fact that that's what I grew up with. When I was in my fledgling years in my video game career, 3D platformers were all the rage, you know? Late 90s. They were everywhere. You couldn't move for them. Crash, Spyro, Super Mario 64, just to name a few. Ratchet and Clank going into the 2000s. Jak and Daxter, Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. That had a ridiculous ad campaign. Didn't actually play it until fairly recently, but they were all over the shop. Pac-Man World, Earthworm Jim 3D. I think even Metal Slug had a stinking 3D platformer. There were so many. To the extent that there's some of them that are so drab. But they all brought something different and new to the table. And they were all exciting in their own unique way. Even the likes of Bugs Bunny Lost in Time was a fun, if deeply flawed experience. I just find them so enjoyable and so gratifying, the 3D platformer. They don't always control well. They don't the cameras are never ever good in 3D platformers, and they always, for some reason, pretty much every platformer that I can think of invariably has the most horrifying drowning animation. It seemed to be a thing. It was I don't get it, but it always happened. 3D platformers, they shaped my tastes in video games early on, and going back to them now, I mean, I only played Mario 64 for the first time in, 2008, 9? And I adore that game. I didn't even play it at the time, and I love it. Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine's not my cup of tea, but I can see why one would enjoy it. There's so many. Jumping Flash, even one of the first ones. That's fantastic. Still yet to play some of the really old ones, but we'll get there. Yeah, 3D platformers, man. They're just the pièce de résistance. Anyway, the one I was going to give an honourable mention to, and really it should have been in the list somewhere, but like I always say about these top fives, they're off the top of my head. They're not always going to be super accurate. That's the whole point of them. Kart racers. I do enjoy a racing game, and kart racers are just the best kind of racing game because, I don't especially like realism in my games, saying that, cinematic platformers, but, I don't always like realism in my games, and I'm no good at realistic racing simulations. But the kart racer allows me to get the adrenaline of a racing game, but still have some fun with it. Again, chiseled my teeth on Crash Team Racing, which I still contend is the best one out there, but then, there's the likes of Mario Kart, of course. One of my absolute favourites of all time, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Diddy Kong Racing, one I recently discovered and I've really enjoyed. Since this is an honourable mention, I won't talk about it too much, but brilliant kart races. And again, each one's got something new to bring to the table, so I like a lot. They are the 3D platformers of the racing genre. Right, well, that's all from me. This is possibly the longest vlog yet, but it's a topic that's very, very important to me, so it makes sense. I wonder if we'll ever get a double overtime. Maybe. Anyway, that's all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.